Hey, how you guys doing? So this is Neil from MasterPaintNow.com bringing you another free art lesson. I'm one of the top art instructors on Udemy with over 30,000 happy students, all growing and learning. So grow with us. All right, let's get started.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit here about digital watercoloring here with Rebelle 3. This is another watercolor I did, and I'm going to describe some of the techniques that you can use and that I've used in this one. You saw in the beginning there, you saw the finished image, and so the first thing is that I've realized you can do with this program is in order to get a nice blend. There, you can see there's a nice blend there. You can actually, blend wet. You can use the blend tool. And then while it's everything in here, as long as everything in here is wet, notice I have the whole paper wet, then I hit the damp tool. So I hit the wet tool, then the damp tool, so it's all the same wetness, not too wet. Then I use this erase tool, not the eraser, but this thing which only erases water. Erase the water around where I want only to paint in. So this will mean that my paint is only going to go within this area. It's not going to go outside of it. So I can get a nice blend that way. And what I should have done though is use less load on my, so you notice you have loading, you have pressure, which is like base opacity. You have loading, that's how much paint's on the brush and how much water's on the brush here. I should have used less paint on the brush and a little bit more water, and then it would have bled out. Another technique you can do here to get a nice blend is push pause, then take the blend tool and start to blend the edge of where you want to bleed out to, and make sure all this is wet. And then you unpause it and it's going to bleed out into just that area that's wet. Now by using less paint, that is less loading on the brush, you can get a more drastic blend from dark to light. And when you do it that way, it's more like, especially if you come over here more with the color, of course then it's not going to be, just try not to go up toward this corner, toward the white. Try to make it white by the color itself. So if you wanted a very desaturated color, you can go down toward black here, whatever color it is, and just go toward black. You can also go over here toward the middle. You can also go this side over here as well, but when you start to go up here, you'll notice that it kind of starts looking more like opaque. But anyway, alright, so that technique comes in very handy. So I go ahead and I use this tool here to erase around where I don't want the water. It's just easier to wet the whole paper than to try to color in where you want the water. You can do either way. You can color in with the water tool, but the erase, I don't know, I just like that way. It's just easier for me. And then I let it blend out, and notice that this is a very desaturated color, but it's going up toward the white, so it has more of that kind of opaqueness to it. Let it blend out. And notice I just keep adding a little bit more paint in there, a little bit more paint in there, and it bleeds out, and that gives me a nice blend. And to further control that blend, you can use the blend tool, but make sure you do it while it's wet. So not just while, the whole area needs to be wet. So where you want to blend into and what you're blending from. So let's say this is all dry right now, and I wanted to blend this more into this. I would take my water tool, which is right here, and I would water all of this right here. So I'd water this whole area right here. And then I'd hit the damp tool, so it's all the same evenness. And then I'd take the blend tool and I would blend right here. I'd push pause and I'd blend right here where I want it to blend into, then unpause it, and it's going to blend into this area nicely. Now if you pause it, it'll give you more of that look to it. And here, because I'm using such desaturated colors, like right here, I go all the way around the color wheel, which is really cool. And it kind of gives almost like a pearlescent look to it. Here just using a lot of the same techniques. Now I notice here this looks kind of opaque, as if there's too much opaque white in there. And so in order to get rid of that, do what I did over here instead. So let it blend out into paper rather than using a lighter white color like this here. It doesn't seem to work so good. But I bring the texture back here, and it's pretty easy to do. To do that, you just save your file first and then save a JPEG version of your file, whatever size you want it to be in the end. And then reopen that JPEG file, close it, and then reopen that JPEG file, and then choose the canvas texture again, and make sure to choose the right size and everything. And then it's going to bring that texture back into where the paint had covered it up, which is pretty cool. I always do that at the end when I'm done. So right there you can see, this is where I use that technique. So I put a bunch of water all the way around here. Now I'm turning, the water's still there, I'm just turning off the water icon so you can't see the water. But the water's there. Then I'm using the blend tool while it's wet. Now watch the difference from here to here. This is going to blend out transparent and not opaque. And it's going to look like you have a nice, watercolor blend. And so that's another way to do it. Now another way I could have done that too is I could have wet all this down, and then I could have put the water with the proper loading all the way on the edge here. It might take a couple tries to get it right, and just put that and then let it blend out to where you want it to. Let it just kind of bleed out toward the center, and just keep adding a little bit until you get the right blend texture, or not texture, the right transparency, the right darkness you want, the gradient you want. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and burn through a lot of this here, because a lot of it's just the same stuff I'm doing over and over again. When I do eyelashes, I leave about 44 water. I put a lot of loading on it, so a lot of paint on there, so I don't have to do so many strokes, and just use a dark color. I never use pure black though, just like in watercolors. I either use a warm black, which will be here, or here, not all the way at the bottom, or a cool black, which will be about here, and it'll either be here or here. So I want it. It depends how like saturated, desaturated I want it. I start to desaturate it because the whole thing is a desaturated painting. I didn't like how the eye looks, so I fixed that later. The lips were pretty fun to do. You can see how, I want to show how, it's just so awesome how this software works with the water. The water is really realistic, very much like how you expect real water to work. I'm trying to see if it shows it here with this part of the lip. I can't remember if I just blend this or if I use the water. So I'm just adding, as I let the water just kind of blend and bleed that, so it's pretty nice. And add a couple of little highlights there. This is, I'm using opaque, so if you want to add this, now you can go in and actually erase this, and it'll give you the very similar look as if you used a mask. Or if you really want to be more traditional with it, you can actually add the mask there, or get it all wet, then take this tool here and dry the water where you want it to be at, which is like masking as well, or you can actually learn how to use the mask, and it's not that hard. They have tutorials on it. And then color all this in and let it use the tilt. That's another thing to get the gradient you want. So if you want the gradient to go from dark to light, then you want it to tilt this way. So you take your tilt and go over here like that, and then turn it on by clicking the middle button. You know it's on when it's blue. And then you can adjust the line here on how far you want it to tilt. And then you wet this whole area, and then you start with the dark, kind of a darker color, and let it blend out like that, and then a little bit darker and a little bit darker. Make sure you don't have too much loading on your brush, and it will get a nice gradient blend out from left to right. And if you have this masked off, it'll go around the mask, and so this will all be nice and blended. But I find erasing really serves the same purpose. The only difference is if you put the mask here, when this blends out, it'll have little ridges around each gradient like real watercolor does, like tiny little edges, if that makes sense. You have to do it to see it. Okay, now let's look at the next one here. Before we look at the next one, you can find me at Master Painting Now. So Master Painting Now, all one word, at Instagram. If you want to follow my Instagram, I post a lot of my work here that doesn't show up on YouTube. My comic book that I've been working on called Aditi Reborn, which is free. You just go to aditireborn.com. That's also on masterpaintnow.com. But the problem with Instagram is, I mean, if you're on a phone or something like that, that's fine, because you're not going to be able to view images that big anyway. And you can always zoom in a little bit to get, to see what they look like. But I recommend, and also I have courses for sale right now on my website, masterpaintnow.com. My anatomy course has over 33,000 happy students right now. But so if you want to go to my drawing painting courses here, and that's how you can save money on that. If you enter my newsletter, you can get cool discounts as well for future courses that come out and be the first to hear about them. Not only that though, this way you don't like lose track of me if YouTube doesn't let you know that I put a new video up. And then also when you sign up to a newsletter, you'll get my free Bob Ross brushes and Krita brushes for paint. So my Bob Ross brushes for Krita and PaintStorm. And I guess some people would have a problem with the Krita ones. I got to figure out, I might have to include an ABR file for that. But it's supposed to work with the bundle, but it's not working, I guess, for some people. But anyway, yeah, I might have to just update it with the new, update my Krita, then remake and do the brushes again. But nonetheless, PaintStorm's much better. It's only 20 bucks. But if you absolutely can't afford that, then Krita's free, and my Bob Ross brushes work really good in Krita as well. But PaintStorm, they work better. Anyway, so you'll get my Bob Ross brushes for free, so you can do Bob Ross type paintings that you've seen me do. Yeah, so that's that. And then if you go to Aditi Reborn, this is my graphic novel here. It'll take you to the graphic novel. Starts off with page 1. Really, it's really cool sci-fi that includes, like, I don't want to give too much away. It's just it's different than what you've probably read ever before. I have my novel, best-selling novel, Bending Nature, under a pseudonym that I write under for female characters. My free, or not my free, my figure drawing book, which is really nice. Anyway, go to my art blog. Here you can actually see full-size pictures. Now this is one I did a video of. It's not out yet, but it will be out. This is like episode 4 or 5 or something like that. Oh, episode 2? Oh, huh. I don't think that's right. I think I messed up on that. Anyway, if you click on the image, you can actually click again and you can see full-size images here. So that's what's good about my master painting now, to see my artwork there. Because if you go to the art blog, you can actually go down, you can look at any of this stuff. Also, you can see artwork that I don't make videos out of as well. And some of them you have to actually click to see what it is. Like, I don't know why it doesn't show a preview there, but you can see this one, this part of my symbolism collection, my symbolism figure collection. This one actually has a pretty cool meaning to it. I really like this. I actually dreamt this, and I was like, you know, that looks really cool. I want to. But in my dream, it wasn't rocks. It was built out of a bunch of like futuristic junk, like a lot of like robot parts and vehicle parts, and just like a lot of different trash and different metal things. And yeah, so. But yeah, so anyway, that's how you go view my artwork. All right, let's go ahead and continue on here. And by the way, if you're liking this so far and you get any benefit from it, do me a favor and like and comment on the video. I'd appreciate that. And then subscribe and hit that bell notification to make sure you get notified when I come out with new videos. And lastly, if you're really feeling generous, go ahead and share the video on your favorite social network. And I'm sure if you like it, other people will like it too. Here's where I darken the eye, because I'm like, yeah, that's just way too saturated of colors. It doesn't match the painting. It looks too cartoonish. Typically, if something looks too cartoonish, it's because it's too colorful. And you need color variation, and it's too colorful. So here I use that same technique again. So I wet the whole paper down, then damp it. Use this tool here. I erased the water only right here, so it kind of is acting like a mask. Then I use some texture brushes here with that same to take the water away, and almost like you're sponging the water away or something. And I texture this out so that when I put the paint here, it's gonna, and I'm gonna put the tilt on, it's gonna go where the water is, but it's not gonna go past this because this is dry, and so it's gonna have this nice textured edge to it. And if you use a mask, the difference is, if you do this with a mask, is if you use the tilt tool, it won't go through a mask. It'll go around the mask, and it'll create this like beaded up edge. I wanted it to go right through this. When I used the blow tool and the tilt, I wanted my streaks to go right through this area here, this dry area. And the only way to get that to happen is if it's not a mask. So just drying this worked really good. I want to show how this works, so it's really cool. And okay, so now I'm laying down the paint. So I put the paint down there. I have the tilt on right now. You can see I'm going to tilt it first this direction so it kind of blends in here. And I'm putting this dark here because I didn't want to put a line right here. And this is all paper color, and I needed this part of her face to show up. And so in order to make that light show up, I put it dark here. It also helps me put a background. Now I have the tilt going this way. Now as it's tilting this way, you can see it's trying to move, but it's all dry right here, because remember I had that dry texture, and that's what creates that textured edge right here. Then I'm going to use the blow tool, and I'm going to push in the direction I want all the, see, look at it now, bam, it just breaks right through the dry paper, and it's just going to drip. And then I kind of go up and down to give it some different directions. You can actually do trees this way. It's actually really cool. You can make trees with just those two tools, the tilt and the blow tool. And then I change the direction of the tilt. And then I add some splatter here. Do the same thing on the other side. I thought that was pretty cool. It adds a nice little background there. Okay, now here, what you can do, so what I did here is I used, wet, and I used the blend tool to blend the edges while it's wet. But another thing you can do if you want to get like a nice gradient look here is to actually use, if you want it to be desaturated, just move the color down toward black, and then have less loading, a very little loading on the paint. That's how much paint on your brush. Use very little loading, and then wet this whole area, and then just paint right here around the edges, and it will blend. It'll bleed and move toward the center, because that's where the paint's not at. So wherever paint's not at, it's going to move toward that area. And anyway, so it'll move toward the center, and that will give you a nice gradient look to the paint. Just like real watercolors, it's really cool. Like any traditional method you can think of, you can do in this software. You just have to learn how the software works and how to do it in the software. I wasn't have all this blending down, and I just thought it looked morbid and weird. So then I was like messing around with like doing some erasing, and I'm like, that looks kind of cool. But then I decided, I'm gonna use the same darkness. I'm gonna have it blend upward or bleed upward. So now it's all bleeding upward. I make some individual strokes, and now how to do these individual strokes. What I did is you can see right there. Hopefully it'll show this. What I do is I use the water tool, and I just put water where I want the streak at. This makes it work faster if you do it this way. Makes the software work faster. This is a really big file, so this will make it work a lot faster rather than wetting the whole paper. And now notice right now, because the tilt's on, it's only blending right there where the water's at, nowhere else. So now I'm getting those streaks where I want them. And that gives that kind of cool streak to look where everything's kind of blended up. Alright, same thing as the other eye. No different there. I fill in the hair with not with water, but just with a lighter color. And then after all that's filled in, it's still damp. And you can also just hit the damp button. It'll never dry until you hit the dry button. So, but they might have different levels of wetness. So always hit the damp button so that it's even wetness, unless you want uneven wetness for some reason. And then I can go in after this, and I can add in a dark color, and it's just going to blend right into it. And then I go again, and I get it wet again, and I let it blend. Add a little shadow to the hairline there. Erase some of that stuff on the left side of the face. Just kind of do some little tweaks. And now I'm kind of blending out the hair everywhere to get. I just thought, it needs a little more abstractness to the hair. Hair didn't look abstract enough, and that's pretty much it. Bring us to the finished image. This is kind of a cool paper, deckled edge. It's the same paper, I just turned on the deckled edge, see what it looked like. That looks kind of cool. It kind of matches the look of it, but I was like, eh. So now I brought the paper texture back using that technique I told you, where I save it as a JPEG, and then I can change the size, because right now it's too big. But notice it's back here. See, all those places where the texture wasn't, the texture is back there again. But still, this looks more like, to me, right in this part of this side of the face, looks more like I used gouache or an opaque white watercolor, and I could have easily prevented that by using the other techniques I told you about. Matter of fact, I used that technique on this side of her head right here, where it blends into the paper. I could have done the same thing here. I wanted color here, but I could have used this side and just made it darker to make it desaturated, and then less loading, and blended it in there, and that could have gave me a very similar color. Or even on this side, and but down here more, and then just use more water, less paint, so less loading, more water, and then let it just blend in like that, and that would have given me that nice color that I wanted without it being like that, that opaque look to it. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Again, please give a thumbs up and leave a comment if you like this, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future. And then also, if you're feeling very generous, like I said, go ahead and hit that share button. I'd appreciate it. And share it on your favorite social media. Like I said, if you like it, it's most likely that somebody else will like it as well. And oh yeah, and then subscribe and hit that bell button if you're not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, go ahead and hit, go to the home page and check and see if you have the bell notifications turned on to make sure that you have a better chance of seeing my videos in the future. And then obviously sign up to the newsletter if you want to make sure that you stay in touch with me and that you get my brushes and all that kind of cool stuff, and discounts and cool videos when I feel like I want to send a newsletter out. Yeah, all right, that's it. So. Till next time.